Hello, everyone. I know that there are a few more folks that are still getting connected in, so we'll give it maybe 15, 20 more seconds just so everybody gets settled, get comfortable, and then we'll get started here very, very shortly. So. All right, good deal. I see. Looks like the majority of folks are connected in. I'm sure we'll have a few stragglers, and that's okay. Um, we'll get everybody caught up no matter what. So first off, foremost, welcome everyone. Hello, my name is Johnny Brister from Alchemy Tech Group. Today I'm joined from my co-host Michael Smith from Okta. So a quick word on me, a little background on me. So I'm the security practice principal here at Alchemy Tech Group, which means that anything that runs through from a security perspective, whether it's the solutions that we endorse or the services that we provide to our customers, runs through my practice. A little bit of background before coming to Alchemy. I worked in healthcare field, right? So 12 years in healthcare where I served a couple of different roles. One was the VP of Information Technology. And then the last few years that I was there, I also was the Information Security Officer. Before my time in healthcare, did a little bit of time in the credit union space. Served at managed IT at a local Louisiana-based credit union, and I have a military background, served 4 years in the U.S. Navy prior to that. So I give Michael a chance to introduce himself as well. Michael?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Michael Smith. I am with Okta. I'm also a sales engineer for Okta, and I am focused on our partners in our channel to help enable them, but also to help with spreading the good word of Okta out there. I've been in the industry for probably 20 years now, mostly in identity and access management. So been around the block, seen a lot of products, and I'm working for Okta for the last 12 months now. So happy to be here.
Great. So again, welcome to everybody. We're obviously going to be talking about some identity concerns, how you can, Okta platform and Alchemy along can help you get ahead of any of those identity concerns. So from an agenda perspective today, we're actually going to do some demos, right? So we're going to show three pretty important use cases that we've seen kind of throughout our entire customer base. So we picked these three based on what we're seeing out there. So we hope that these are valuable to you. And we'll get started. So first thing is the agenda, right? So we'll start out with a few event reminders, just some logistics and housekeeping items. And then Michael and I'll both give quick intros to our company. So I'll intro Alchemy and what we do, where we focus. Michael will touch on Okta and all of the different things that they solve. And then from there, we'll dive straight into those demos to handle each one of those use cases. That first one being lifecycle management, or kind of that complete identity lifecycle. We're going to look at how can you utilize your HR system as that source of truth, not only for identity and application access, but also how you can automate that through that function. That next demo we'll look at is going to be multi-factor authentication. So obviously very important in today's world, but we're going to show you how you can reduce that end user friction while you can increase that overall security posture for your organization. And then last but not least, it's kind of split into two. So it'll be a quick demo on kind of some org-to-org federation scenarios. And then we'll also touch on affiliate access as well. So we'll show you how the Okta platform can help you, help your IT and your security departments both meet those demands of the business. Then after the demos, we'll cover any additional questions before we close out. So getting right to it. So a couple of reminders here. So there's a QA function. It should be on the top right-hand portion of your browser window. Feel free to drop in any of the questions that you have along the way, especially during those use case demos. So we're actually going to try to pause and answer those questions in the middle of that. So you don't have to wait to the end. Of course, if you have something that comes to mind well after a use case, throw it out there. We'll have some time at the end to make sure that we cover all those as well. We are recording today, right? So it will become available to everyone who attended. We'll send that out via email with a link to download that. So if there's anything that you did miss, you can go back through, listen to that, see the visual, and pair that all up. And of course, last but not least, for attendance today, everyone's going to get a custom pair of Nike tennis shoes. So, you know, at the end, we'll talk about those instructions. You'll receive some emails as well on how to do that, but it'll kind of walk you through how you can go through, design those custom shoes, and we'll cover that a little bit more in the end. So a quick word about Alchemy. So who is Alchemy? What is Alchemy? So first and foremost, alchemy as a word is defined as the process of taking something ordinary and turning it into something extraordinary. And it's really the premise that we've built the entire company on 4 short years ago. So if you see there, those first 3 boxes, we really aim to hire technical talent that can deliver. And that's been a mixture that's come from the enterprises, whether it be healthcare, oil and gas, all over the place, as well as lifelong consultants, right? So we've paired them up so that we have that customer empathy and that top talent to be able to move on to that next box, which is really about building a relationship with our customers. We really try, hard to not just come in, do consulting work and leave. We want to be with you for the long run because ultimately our goal is to help you build out a mature program, whether it's in security or infrastructure, or even if you're on a journey to the cloud. And then the third bullet there I'll cover is in a little bit more detail is just our focus, right? So we don't try to boil the whole ocean, right? We are very specific in the work that we do, and we try to be the best that we can in each of those areas. So when we look at those 3 things, we really think that that's the formula for success. We can help our customers to create those, transformative business outcomes as outlined there. So a little bit of a dive into our practice areas and the specifics that we play in. So if you look across the top there, when we've developed our practice areas, we really aim to look across our customer environments and understand what's the challenges and the pain points that they're having. And you see, identity is probably number 1, right? It's always out there. So, but people have a challenge managing multiple identities that are cloud-based or even on-prem based. Same thing with devices. Nothing more true than this year in 2020 is devices are everywhere. They're spread out. Applications, whether they're on-prem or SaaS-based applications, trying to pull them all in from a management function. Same thing with content. You've got on-prem content, you've got public, private, cloud. Your content and your data is going to live everywhere, which is really kind of highlighted, I guess, we call it network sprawl, but your network, being extended well beyond the typical 4 walls of your business, and when we look across those things, really, it's kind of what we see is sometimes controlled, sometimes uncontrolled, but, there's a little bit of operational chaos that goes along with that. So that's really the formation of what we looked at when we take those silos and turn them into our Alchemy solutions, which we call our elements. So the first one you see there is our experience element. That particular practice focuses on end user compute, sort of the end user experience, and then application and user virtualization platforms. Next, we have our protect practice, which is our security practice. 3 areas that we really focus in on there: data protection, that endpoint security or that workspace security, wherever that workspace may be, and of course what we'll be highlighting today is in the identity management section. And of course our last practice there is our transform practice. Focus here is on data center, cloud, and even digital transformation priorities for our customers. So in those practice areas, how we deliver that is through, these 3 areas that you see here. We've got our consulting services group, we've got our project managers, and even our managed service group. And you can see that there's several areas that we focus in, right? Advisory assessments all the way down into, managed services and the response and recovery section. And really, when we pair all these things up with the practices that we focus in, really, that kind of delivers on that business outcome that we're looking to help you with. So with that, I'll give Michael a chance to do a quick intro to Okta, and then we'll go into the use cases.
Thanks, Johnny. Everybody, welcome. Glad to have you here today. Talking about Okta today, we have a little different than a lot of the different identity management and access management solutions you see out there, in that we're meeting all 3 of the use cases out there for your workforce, for your partners, and for your customers. So if you're doing that B2B, B2C, or B2E, we're able to help in all those use cases on the same platform. And we're able to work with applications, whether those are cloud-based applications or the on-premise applications that you may have some legacy technology that's still there, some technology debt that you're still utilizing. And we have the ability to help you give a single sign-on secure multi-factor enriched access to those applications. And the same thing with your infrastructure, whether that infrastructure is in the cloud or on-premise or maybe in a colo, or even in a combination of clouds, whether it could be in Google, Azure, or AWS, or combination thereof. We're able to give you access to those with easy policies and ephemeral certificates to avoid any kind of credential theft causing infrastructure concerns. And that's really going to give you that zero trust approach to your infrastructure as well as your applications. And your APIs, we're also protecting the APIs out there today with your private and your public APIs. And if you think about Okta, we're really built on a cloud-based set of services. We are in the cloud. There is little to no install on-premise. If you're using the on-premise applications that you need access to, we do have an appliance that does install in a virtual environment. But the majority of all of our platform is done, especially our identity platform, is all done in the cloud across our services you see across the bottom here. And we offer several products. A lot of people think of Okta as single sign-on and multi-factor authentication only, but really we have advanced into the infrastructure access, like I mentioned earlier. And our multi-factors really become and grown into more of what we call an adaptive MFA. And we're introducing context of the user's behavior, the user's actions, as well as context of the device the user's accessing from, and bringing all that context into the decision of our factor lists and doing a risk-based factor requirement before we actually get to the login process of the user, so that when the user actually does enter their username, they could be presented with just a factor request and not a password, or a password and some extra factors, depending on whether we trust or don't trust and the risk of that connection. And we've really moved into lifecycle management as well, being able to manage the joiner, mover, leaver situation when you have a user come on board, being able to provision them automatically from an HR system, like Johnny mentioned earlier, and bring that into your Okta, and then shoot that downstream to all your applications and get those identities built. So day one, you have access for your users as they come on as new employees, and have the right access to the applications they need access to. And we're taking that a little further with what we call workflows into extended provisioning. So the ability to provision into groups or into Slack channels or into further activities based on those creation events or on change events inside their lifecycle, or even on separations, so provisioning and deprovisioning type workflows. And then moving into our access gateway, we talked about that, so you're accessing those on-premise applications. And API protection, we're putting an OAuth 2 as a service layer in between your API gateways and your applications and your servers that are making those requests. So those machine-to-machine conversations, actually stepping in there and putting some security around that. In fact, Gartner predicts in 2022 that 60% of all breaches will be caused by APIs because of the modernization of applications using those APIs. And the biggest part of Okta that makes us kind of stand out is our integration network. The Okta integration network has over 6,500 integrations that we've already created and built for you ahead of time. And these things are clicks away from deploying. In fact, we have some customers who can deploy applications to their entire workforce in minutes, not days, not weeks, but minutes. And most of our deployments, because of our integration network, are in weeks instead of months. So whether it's for single sign-on integrations or automated provisioning or any of those across the bottom, we're able to work. And we also integrate with a lot of security tools as well. So if you have a SIEM solution that you're using, analytics solution, or even a CASB type server, or email security, we integrate with several of those to come back and give you an enriched security experience throughout the identities experience as well as those security pieces. And they integrate usually if you own both pieces of software, and I'll give an example, Proofpoint. If you own Proofpoint and you owned Okta, you already own the integration between Proofpoint and Okta. It's not an upsell or anything different you have to purchase. And I'll let you take it over from here, Johnny.
Yep, perfect. So probably my favorite slide, and then the last one we'll show until one that simply says Q&A, just to keep you all going. So I've been asked this quite a few times, and I'm very proud to kind of display this one. But a lot of times it's like, well, why Alchemy and Okta? You know, why is that a winning formula? Well, you can see on the left there, you know, we've invested quite a bit, as well as Okta invested in quite a bit in us. And the result is that we've been their partner of the year for 3 years. Across the top there, you see that, you know, our consultants have all levels of certification, all the way up to the highest level, right? So there's the certified professional, certified administrator, and a certified consultant. It means that we've gone through all the Okta platforms, all the training, We've got experience in the field deploying and helping our customers there. Two in particular that I really like to brag about, if I can. So there's the Okta Partner Technical Champion Program. So our consultants are a member of that. It's we are one of 15 partners worldwide that are a member of that program. So it's fairly exclusive. And then even more exclusive is the Okta Partner Identity Innovation Center, which is Alchemy is one of only 5 partners worldwide. So we're extremely proud of not only the relationship and the investment that we've made, but the outcome that we're able to help deliver from an Alchemy and Okta perspective to all of our customers. So, okay, last slide. And Michael, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Let's go ahead and start the demonstrations. So if you don't mind, give a little background. Let's set the stage for what we're looking at, a little bit about the company that we've conjured up here. That way everyone has a little bit of context and background.
Sure. So first of all, I would like to say something about Okta working with Alchemy. It's been a very, like I said, I've been around for 20 years and I've seen a lot of different companies, and I'm very impressed with Alchemy. I haven't seen a company that's this dedicated to excellence in their delivery. So I'm happy to be partnered with them and be here with them. So our demo is based around, you're welcome. He didn't know I was going to do that. So our demo is based around a company we created called Rubicon for Life. It is a Jeep customization company. They do have a slogan of anywhere you want to go. And the business is doing good. It's taking off. They're starting to acquire some of their competitors and really grow and become a good organization. And talking about the IT of the organization, they use Bamboo HR as their HR solution. And then for email and collaboration, they're using Microsoft tools, so Office 365. And they have gone completely cloud. They're not using any on-premise applications. And their CRM is Salesforce. So they're using Salesforce to do all of their CRM. And they're also using it for their service ticket solution. And to set the stage about what we're going to demo next. So talking about HR as a master, we have a new employee who's been hired here at Rubicon for Life. And Rubicon for Life has already deployed Okta and already integrated it with their Bamboo HR. And as we bring this employee, Bill Tautrieve, on for his first day of hiring, he's going to go to HR and he's going to do his first day of, orientation, get all the packets and, all his enrollments for insurance. But he's also going to be introduced to the technology. And the first time he's going to log into Okta, set up his credentials, and he's going to go from there. But what that looks like is for Okta is as the HR solution is brought up and a new employee is added, that they're going to input all the pertinent information. So they're going to give us his name, his address, his employee ID, all those good things that you would normally fill out in an application or in a resume. And they're going to bring these in. And as they're inputting this information into the HR solution, Okta on the back end is going to import that information and create a user account. And that user account is going to get an activation email that's going to go to that personal email address they use on a resume. And it's going to give them the information they need to link in to actually go log into Okta. And then once they finish inputting all the data and we've imported that user, a couple more clicks here, we'll actually be able to log into Okta.
I think a good point here too, Michael, is that this is an HR function, right? So from an IT or IT security perspective, they're not even involved to this point, right? This is HR onboarding a new employee. I'll just highlight that and then we'll tie that in together as the demo continues, but I just wanted to point that out early on.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing here is what we call HR as a master. In other words, the source of the information comes from HR. So as HR representative inputs into the HR solution, not IT, that account is automatically created. And through the automation in the back end, we're giving groups memberships, which give access to what we call entitlements in Okta. And now, as you see, as Bill logs into Okta and he presents his multi-factor authentication. And just real quick, I want to point out in the demo we're using, you'll see that we're using just a security question for our multi-factor, but that's for ease of use in a demo. What you would do in the real world in a production environment, obviously, would be to use some other factor. And that factor could be Okta Verify, which is a phone type application that gives you a push notification that you say, yes, this is me, a lot like Google Authenticate. Or you could actually use Google Authenticate or any other multi-factor you may have already invested in, like Duo or third-party on-premise type multi-factor solutions that you already have an investment in and don't want to replace just yet because you've already paid for that investment. But we also can integrate some of the modern multi-factor authentications, again, bringing that text that context in the conversation and being able to make decisions. But we can do FIDO2 as well. So if you want to do biometrics, facial recognition, Windows Hello, and we actually have a Windows Hello in this demo. So now that Bill's been provisioned, he's logged in. He can access his applications like normal. He's able to launch his Salesforce application, and notice that he's automatically logged in, and he's logged into the Rubicon for Life's environment for Salesforce. And now he can go about his business in Salesforce. And not only Salesforce, he can launch his Office application. So he's launching Outlook. He's automatically logged in. He's there in his inbox, and he can then review any of his email or go through his email as he needs to do. And all this.
And Michael, I was going to say, let's. I think an important thing to talk about, specifically on the Microsoft side with lifecycle management, is the ability to not only provision and deprovision accounts within Office 365, but you can also control the licensing. So I know for many organizations, they may have a tiered approach to Office 365 licensing, right? So maybe there's a group that's a E1. Right, and there's a group that's E3, and you have another group that's E5. Maybe whatever the internal structure is. Maybe you do it based on risk and need for different types of applications or whatnot. But with Okta and the LCM function, you can actually automatically provision not only the accounts and the access, but you can also do the licensing. And so on the flip side of that, whenever you remove that, you can also remove that licensing. So that tends to be a very efficient way of managing some of the Microsoft licensing. So there's not a ton of overspend or, just licensing that are hanging out there and you're paying for them, but there's actually no employee to use them. So I just want to touch on that point too as well, Michael.
Absolutely. And you can also control through Okta, through our SAML integration, memberships to distribution list or memberships to other groups inside of Office 365 or Azure. We also integrate with Azure AD directly. So lots of cool things you can do with Okta with Office 365 on top of just provisioning an account for access and setting a license. We also could use our workflows in the back end to send emails via Office 365 for notifications of any kind based on an event of an identity or an event inside an application that we integrate with. So good point, Don. So now that Bill's all set up in his Rubicon for Life, he's been presented an account. Some of the benefits of HR as a master is, like we've already kind of touched on, is as Bill's role changes, let's say he changes a location or he changes his job function or role within the company, we're automatically pushing those changes to his application access in Okta. And I think that's probably one of the biggest, the second biggest concerns when it comes to lifecycle management is that rights sprawl, or the ability to, as you stay with the company and change roles, you just keep gaining these rights and no one corrects your rights and removes rights, right? They just keep adding rights every day or every role change. And then when you separate from the company, the most important piece of HR as a master is, as soon as you're unenrolled out or separated from the company, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, we're able to put that action into place into Okta and disable the Okta account as well as all those downstream applications and remove the access you have to, like, let's say Salesforce. And this is very important because it's as soon as it's set in HR, that's when we're able to remove those rights, as opposed to waiting a day or two for IT to be able to get a ticket to go in and do the work, or maybe an email to go to somebody to remove rights and it gets missed. Those kinds of things are all avoided.
Yeah, and that's under the assumption that IT gets notified. So at this particular point, the benefits, not only efficiency, but very, very real-time security. So HR is going to know that the employee is terminated. That's the source, right? So they enter in the termination record, and as Michael said, flows all the way through. So not only is access disabled, but from a security posture, you're protected from that moment. Because I know at my time in the enterprise, especially in healthcare, it was never Monday through Thursday. It was always Friday, 4:30 or later, that there was going to be some termination that I would get notified of. So I think that's a very important factor. Michael, on that, we have a question that came in before we go to the next one, though.
Sure.
So question is this. Let me read this off so for everybody to hear. So if HR is the master, can we change those attributes in Okta?
Yeah, so with Okta, when we have HR as a master, that's a good point. It's not just the full identity is mastered by HR. And what I mean by that is, if it's mastered by HR, let's say Bamboo HR in this case, we can't edit the attributes inside of Okta by default. What we can do is do attribute level mastering within our universal directory. So each individual attribute can be mastered by either Okta or another application on top of HR. And a good example of that is when you provision a user from HR, you may not have an email address, a corporate email address that's assigned in Office 365 yet. We can actually allow Office 365 to master an email address and then bring it back to HR and provision it back. You can put a dummy email address to begin with and then come back and actually provision that back downward or upward to the HR system at just the single attribute level. So really cool.
Good. Yep. Great
Any
question.
other questions?
Yeah, there was one more that came in, and I'll take this one's fairly easy question here. So, are all HR systems integrated with Okta, or is it just Bamboo HR like we're showing? So Bamboo is just the one that we chose, right? It's a fairly popular one. There are plenty of people that have it, but there are tons of others that have native integrations. They all vary by degree, but what I will tell you is that even if there may not necessarily be an API direct integration, there is most definitely the way that you can do basically a file export CSV from the HR system, and then Okta can pull that in, and that can be set on a schedule, right? So there's multiple ways to configure that type of integration to make sure that you're maintaining that real-time status, or there's real-time updates from the HR system. And I think that's all we have thus far on that topic. So we'll go into the next one, Michael.
Okay, so now moving into the next demonstration, what we're going to show here is an integration with Azure AD, Windows Hello, Office 365, and Intune. So in this case, the company has already set up Intune, has already set up Azure AD, and already has their Office 365 tenant. They've already integrated Okta into it. And Bill has received a laptop in the mail that he's getting because now he is a remote worker because of the COVID incident. He is having to work from home, and he didn't normally have a laptop. So they sent him a laptop, and this laptop is imaged and simply sitting at a login prompt for him to input his credentials for the first time. And the only information that Bill's been given is his corporate email address, which he already knows from logging into Okta, and his email address. I mean, his password for that. So we're going to go through that setup process. So here it's the first screen you see when you set up Windows after you've installed the operating system. And here we're going to use our Office 365 credentials, our corporate email address, to log in to Office 365. Now, an important thing to note here is Office 365 is protected by Okta. And if you notice here, when we're connecting here at the top for connecting to Office 365, we're actually seeing an Okta login credential. That's because Office 365 redirects to Okta whenever you try to log into Office 365 directly, or when you log into Okta to access those Office 365 tools, you're redirected to Okta to guarantee you're using your multi-factor authentication requirements. So Will's going to log in, and as he logs in, he's presented with his normal Okta login credentials that he's used to seeing, his email address and his password, and then his multi-factor.
Yeah, at this point, that's all he knows, right? He's literally just being onboarded as an employee. So
only thing he needs to know.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now, after signing in, it's going to continue the setup process for Windows that we're all familiar with. I'm going to tell a little secret. This is a video, so we did edit out some of the time. It does take longer than this to set up a Windows 10 device, if you haven't seen that before. But it still takes some time in this demo. Even with editing. So it'll set up the device. We're gonna go in the back end and do the Windows setups, and we're gonna get the device all ready. Obviously, you got to share information, what information you want to share, and then we're gonna set up the actual profile and account on the device. And if you haven't seen all these screens in IT, you're probably like me and did desktops a long time ago and not recently. But some of my favorite screens are here in this little epilogue here where you're saying we're getting everything ready for you, and this will only take a minute.
At least you're informed along the way. They're letting you know that things are getting set up and it might take several minutes. They should probably just say this will definitely take several minutes.
This will take several, and at least it doesn't have the counting 0 we used to have, right? The little dot that would go up.
Nonetheless, though, I mean, while this is happening, yeah, I think that it's important to kind of notate that this is an employee that's literally just onboarded, right? I kind of said that, but they've got very little tribal knowledge of company assets. They've been given the basics, and not only are they now logging in to get resources, but they're also getting their device configured along the way.
Right, and I think a lot of us have seen that recently. I have a couple of friends who are in IT, and they're deploying laptops still from March when they had to go remote. So this part is something I want you to see. This is off of the Azure AD site. This is because Windows Hello is set up inside of Azure AD as a required authentication method for the desktops that are registered and set up in Intune. We're being prompted to set up our Windows Hello. And so in this case, we're going to use a PIN because this is a VM and it doesn't have access to a camera or to a fingerprint pad, but you could use whatever Windows Hello authentication you wanted to do. And again, we're going to be asked to log in for our credentials. This is to set up our first time authentication using Windows Hello with our desktop. And so we'll go through those basic authentication steps again.
And Michael, just for context, we actually had a question that come in asking, do you have similar SSO integrations for Mac OS with JAMF?
So we do integrate with Jamf, not so much with full-on single sign-on, but we do have desktop single sign-on for Mac as well. What I would like to say is down the road, there's going to be a lot of integration in the next year or two that's going to change there with Okta, where single sign-on from any operating system is going to be a lot easier. But today there is an agent that gets installed on the Macintosh, each individual Macintosh, that allows it to do a desktop single sign-on. What we're dealing with here in Windows 10 is no agents at all installed. With older versions of Windows, we do have to have some agents installed. So we're going to set our PIN. We're going to go ahead and set up Windows Hello and finish that and complete that setup process. And now once we finish this, we should be able to access our desktop. So now we're all set. And here you can see our applications are already deployed through Intune onto our desktop of our Windows Office tools. And if we try to access those tools, typically, if you try to access this through direct access to the Office tools with Okta integration, you'd be prompted for an Okta authentication. But since we set up Windows Hello with our Okta authentication, we're already brought in as a single sign-on experience to our applications. So that was our Office tool, which went really quickly, but we can also access our collaboration tools and go in and see those and open a new Word document or anything that is Office 365 based at this point in time. So as you can see, integration with Windows Hello, Intune, Azure AD, we added this computer to the domain. It was not pre-added. You could pre-add these with the machine identifier if you wanted to as well, but we were able to do all of that and authenticate the desktop. And if we log back off and notice we're just presented with our Windows Hello PIN, or it would be facial recognition or thumbprint at that point in time. And then when we log back in, we're back in our desktop without having to log into Okta, without having to log into any other application. And we're able to do a passwordless experience with Windows Hello all the way into our Office 365 tools with the integration to Okta.
Cool. And
as
so
soon
while
as
that's
Windows lets us.
no, while that's happening, another question came in, right? So we demoed Windows Hello, very popular in the enterprise, but obviously we don't want to leave out Apple and their devices. So the question is, can Windows Hello or Apple Touch ID be used as a factor as well in the Okta authentication?
Absolutely. So Okta supports FIDO2, any FIDO2, which is a more modern protocol standard for factors, and we support any of those, whether it's iOS. There's even some on Android. Facial recognitions, biometrics, retina scans, all those things that are going into that FIDO2 authentication, or even browser-based FIDO2 authentications are allowed as a factor in Okta.
Yeah, and so we can touch on a couple of the benefits that were inherent here. We obviously showed the experience to what it looks like for the users, but for me, a passwordless experience, right, from a user perspective, obviously that's good, right? It's going to, if I don't have to enter passwords, I don't have to make them up, which I'm going to make them up poorly because I'm human. But also, with MFA integrated into the entire experience, you can also not only go passwordless, but you can also design, factor sequencing so you can go in a risk-based approach, right? So, for example, and Michael, you can touch on this some more as well if you want. But for example, if I'm coming from a new location, new IP, new device, maybe I went down to the local Verizon store because I dropped my phone in the water and go get a new one, then that's a change, right? So my risk level's gone up so that I could be prompted for MFA in that particular scenario because my risk level's changed. So it's, just a couple of the benefits there from a end user perspective, as well as from a security and protection perspective.
Absolutely. And not just new devices. We can see the network. We can see the geolocation down to the latitude and longitude. We can actually see, if they're coming from one location and then 5 minutes later coming from another location. We call that velocity. In Okta internally, we call it Superman, because you can't log into Texas and then 5 minutes later log in Tennessee unless you're flying like Superman. So we have a lot of factors there, but we also integrate with Intune, like we just showed, and we also integrate with a lot of your mobile device managements like VMware Workspace ONE or Jamf as well for your Macintosh. And we're able to see if that device is trusted. And if the device is trusted or managed, we can lower that risk level and then require less factors. Or if the device is not trusted, it's a personal device, we can increase those factors. Not only can we increase those factors for logging into Okta, but we can also increase those factors and pass that down to applications that are device aware. Salesforce now is device aware. So if you log into Salesforce with an unmanaged machine, even though you're using the same credentials, you see less data because the machine is not a corporate machine.
Right. Yep. And then before we move to the last set of use cases, Michael, we have one more question. So question is, are there issues integrating these solutions with an internal F5 hosted SAML IP and SAML SP instances?
No, because Okta integrates very well with SAML or F5 as well, or pretty much any SAML type application. But we are given F5 is one of our main integration technology partners, and we can use them as an identity provider, or we can use them as a service provider and add our identity into that system as well.
Cool. I don't see any other questions, so if you want, we can go on to the next set of use cases.
Sure. And just a touch on this. What we're doing here in this instance is our Rubicon for Life company has grown, and we've gotten quite a bit of customers who have started to expect some extra services. So as a customer experience and also a little zero touch for COVID, we've employed a logistics company to ship our Jeeps back and forth between the customer. So as the customer sends it to us, they're going to actually get a service that picks their Jeep up at their home and bring it to us to work on. And then when we're done, we're going to ship it back to them. And that company's name is Jeep Drop. So at Jeep Drop, we have a need, though, to go into the Salesforce ticket and information for the customer inside of Rubicon for Life Salesforce instance, and access the ticket and to allow us to put action items within that ticket of the transport. And so what we've done here is they don't have Okta at Jeep Drop. They only have Windows Azure. And so they're going to their Azure application window, and we actually have an application here named Okta. A little hard to see on some of the screens. You may see it better on your screen. It's a little small on mine. But we're going to click on the Okta application, and without being provisioned or having any access inside of, and we're here pointing out that our email address is at jeepdrop.com, and we've logged into a different Office 365 instance than Rubicon for Life. But when we click on that application, we're actually going to be brought into the Okta tenant for Rubicon for Life. And because we're going in there, we do require multi-factor still, so they will have to present multi-factor to prove who they are. But they'll now have a Salesforce application within our dashboard for Rubicon for Life for that user. And that user can click on Salesforce and launch Salesforce for Rubicon for Life and be able to go in and edit that ticket. Now, of course, in real world, you're going to want to set your rights for that user coming into Salesforce as to what they can and can't do inside of Salesforce. And also, you probably wouldn't use a generic account. You could use any account that is federated and authenticated from Azure AD to from that company inside of their Microsoft tenant.
That's a good point there, Michael, because the scenario that we've drawn out here, and hopefully it's resonated, is that there's from our original company, there is a third party or an affiliate, that we're doing business with, and we've just extended out access to that third party company literally with no touch, right? So these are all set up behind the scenes. From an end user experience, you saw they logged into their normal portal and they're able to access the Rubicon for Life resources, and you can still use the same Okta protections that you've employed to your enterprise, right? So they'll get single sign-on, they'll get the multi-factor, all of those things will just naturally progress across the entire now expanded environment.
Yeah, and just a point of reference to set up those configurations with inside of Okta and inside of Azure AD. It's an application in Azure AD with a SAML authentication. And it's pretty easy to set up. It takes probably 15 to 20 minutes following directions. And then if you know what you're doing, you can knock that down to 5. And then within Okta, following directions takes about 5 to 10 minutes. If you know what you're doing, 5 minutes. So within 10 to 15 minutes, we've integrated a affiliate company into using our application.
Yeah, and we did have a question that came in on this. I think we answered it, but I want to make sure that we indeed. So, and the question is, if an organization has ADFS instead of Azure AD, can it also act as the IDP as well?
Absolutely. Okta recognizes several different identity providers as its source of identity access, ADFS being one of those.
Good. And I don't see any other questions on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, you also see that in hybrid environments when people have on-premise as well as cloud-based Azure, and they're synchronizing everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't see any other, no other questions right now for that particular use case. So good, we'll hit the last one, right? Kind of the acquisition story. So if you want to set that up for the audience, and then we'll go through that piece.
Sure. Like we said, Rubicon for Life's growing and acquiring some of its competitors. One of its competitors that it's acquiring is Tinker and Tom's Garage, and he's a body shop, and he goes in and fixes Jeeps as well, but he's just not able to keep up with Rubicon for Life and their capital that they've been able to grow. So he's decided to go ahead and sell his company to them. And in this acquisition, Tinker and Tom is already invested in Okta and already has an Okta tenant. And what we're doing here is we're actually integrating Okta to Okta. Now, not only does this work for acquisitions, this could also work for departments or divisions within a company that you may have a need to do separate, because of compliances, separate administration tenants or administration consoles for different IDs. So here we're going to log into our Tinker and Tom's Okta instance.
TNT,
and when we log in, TNT, he's dynamite. So when we log in here, something to note is we have our regular Tinker and Tom Salesforce, but we also have Rubicon for Life Salesforce. This Salesforce application, when we click on it, is actually going to launch and take us into Rubicon for Life Salesforce. And again, since we require a multi-factor to log into Rubicon for Life, he will be presented with his multi-factor credentials, but no other authentication required. And then once he launches that, we should go straight into Salesforce. And if we look on the user, and look at his settings there, you can see that we're again in that Rubicon for Life environment for Salesforce. So again, very easy to set up, very easy to configure. Putting two organizations together probably takes about 30 to 40 minutes to set this up. And again, you could use this for a hub and spoke type conversation inside of one company.
Yeah, and Michael, let's talk just for a minute on, we'll get to the benefits here too, because obviously we've displayed some, but from the time to build. So we actually built this entire environment just for today's presentation. Now, obviously there's operational change management, user communication, all those things that go along with part of an enterprise. Don't want to discount that because that obviously is extremely important. But the amount of time that it took us to, from scratch, build out, Active Directories, Office 365 environments, the Bamboo HR system, and then to design all of these workflows and security controls that we put in. We did that in roughly 2 weeks. I'm not suggesting that you can do that in your organization in 2 weeks, but it just highlights the time to value whenever you are able to hook Okta into your HR system, protect with multi-factor, and then obviously in an org-to-org or an affiliate scenario. So I just wanted to highlight that. I mean, obviously building out a demo environment is much different than an enterprise, but we do typically see, for large enterprises, it's a matter of weeks for time to build, and then not, actual time to value. It's not months or years. So I just wanted to highlight that a bit.
That's probably the number one reason or differentiator with Okta and our competitors is the time to value.
Yeah, and it kind of circles back to a few things, but that Okta integration network becomes extremely valuable. It's literally kind of a wizard-driven integration. really, really helps you get there and get there fast, as fast as you want, actually. So yeah, one question came in, Michael. So I think you highlighted this, and this is a great question. So can this be used? Let me read it as is. Can this be used for divisions or departments within an organization to restrict administration of subsets of users or for compliance reasons? Such a great
Absolutely.
question.
So that is a good question. So the instance where this is a use case is a city, a county, or some type of government institution that has courts or officers of the law of any kind, law enforcement of any kind, because there's a CJIS compliant that requires that the sheriff's county or the police department is managed only by IT staff who are sanctioned and part of the police force. So the city managers or the county managers can't manage that Active Directory. And they can't manage the Okta user accounts or anything. So what we do there is we typically have an Okta instance dedicated to an AD instance there. We then hub and spoke that off to the city or county's main Okta instance. And that gives us the ability to have a single collaboration set of tools like Office 365 for your email and things like that, instead of having to figure out a way to merge those two directories together. And that's a big concern today in a lot of SLED. But other organizations that are parent child type companies also a great application there as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and we actually see this quite a bit in healthcare, but like we said, among others. So particularly in where there's large health systems that are trying to extend out their services, whether it's the EMR or other things, out to some of those affiliates. Maybe it's a specialty physician clinic that they're trying to bring on board, their EMR and some of their systems or what have you. So this type of, ability to extend that out without lots of domain trust and, the security issues and nightmares that exist. These are all use cases that we're seeing a high demand for. So that's just some of the benefits there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and the affiliate as well in your instance right there, the affiliate as well, as far as you have doctors and you have clinics that aren't involved in your direct association of your facility. So you end up, I know for it's short-term healthcare type situations where you have doctors who aren't employees, but they're an affiliate who has to come in and authenticate. That's also another good use case for the affiliate use case as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole continuity of care initiative that's pretty much mandated. So it's extremely important. And with the automatic provisioning, just-in-time provisioning that you highlighted earlier, really takes a burden off of the IT security provisioning teams to be able to quickly get that access, which is extremely important, for many use cases. But obviously, since I highlighted the healthcare one, doctors want and need the access at the time they need it, and we all benefit from that from a treatment or from a healthcare perspective. But obviously, that extends into other verticals as well.
One more thing, Johnny, I just want to point out on that whole use case as well. It also covers the customer side. So as you're going in and logging into your portal as a customer, Okta helps you control those consumer identities as well as those workforce affiliates and your business partners.
Absolutely. And actually, since the question that came in was around, had a compliance angle there, it's certainly something that can help you with, various compliance objectives, whether it's CCPA or GDPR. Those are much, much harder because you're talking about massive amount of numbers from a consumer perspective versus the workforce enterprise. So all extremely important pieces of the puzzle that you guys all have to solve today. So obviously we're here to help with that. So I think that's a wrap for the demonstrations of the use cases. We'll flip over to the final Q&A section now. I think I have one or two more questions that have come in. So we have a slide there. So let me see. There's a question from earlier that asked, can you reset a Windows password with Okta?
Absolutely. So Okta can set passwords within not just Active Directory, but LDAP directories as well, as long as it's configured properly, of course, with our agent. We have a very small agent that installs on a member server in AD, for instance, and you're capable of resetting that password. And now, when I say that, we're able to set AD passwords and synchronize AD passwords, and as well as Office 365 and Azure AD. But if your reference is to Control-Alt-Delete, can I modify my password at that point in time from a desktop? Today,
Right.
Okta does not integrate directly with the Windows Gina, so you would have to go to the Okta dashboard to reset those passwords. We do have partners like Alchemy who have put solutions together to be able to have a desktop integration with the Gina, but Okta out of the box does not.
Got it. And so, Michael, good job. I do believe we've hit all of the questions that have come in thus far. So, just a few more things as we close up. So just a quick reminder, everyone that attended, you're going to get an email link. It's going to have some pretty detailed instructions on how you can go out to the Nike website. You can design those custom pair of shoes, and they'll be shipped to the address of your choice. That link is also going to be dropped into the chat window here, so you don't have to try to write that down, but it's giftbillions.com/okta-shoes. But again, that's all going to be covered in the follow-up email that goes out to you. If you go to that URL, from that information that comes, you'll be able to pick from these 4 options that you see on the screen. And it's pretty straightforward guide, right? You should be able to kind of walk through and change colors, or I think you can even change like the arch height and maybe add some initials or something like that. Maybe there's a special prize for anyone that does any that says ATG, Alchemy Tech Group, as their initials. I'll just throw that out there. If you go that route, let me know.
Or the most creative. I want to see the most creative. I want pictures back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a shipping perspective, the shoes should arrive in roughly 3 to 4 weeks. Mileage may vary there, but if you have any questions on that, definitely reach out to the Alchemy marketing team. We'll be coordinating all that. That's marketing@alchemytechgroup.com. Just as a FYI, because someone asked this, the link is only going to work for those who have attended, so you can't forward it around and get your buddies some shoes. But if you send them our way, then we'll definitely have a conversation with them about, Alchemy and Okta services.
Hey, Johnny, we had one more Q&A come in.
Okay, go for it.
Can Okta's SSO solution capture users' AD password and automatically set that password information for applications that users' AD credentials? We use a lot of embedded API calls with AD user information and want to decouple user access from the application. That it depends on the application integration. If we can integrate with the application and provision to that application, absolutely, we could send information to that. We also have open APIs and SDKs on the back end of Okta. So if you were to use HR as a master, put all the information of the user into Okta and only disseminate certain information to Active Directory, but also you need to disseminate other information to other applications, you could make calls to Okta's APIs and SDKs as well. Or if we could provision to that application, you could provision the user and whatever attributes you want to map to that application. We do mapping of attributes across applications to Okta and Okta to applications. So we could definitely do that. And the authentication, depending on the application's authentication method, if it's a modern authentication method, we could definitely do that. If it's an older legacy, thick client type application, Okta natively can't do it. But again, we do have partners that can help with that, like Alchemy.
Very cool. Good question. Very specific use case too. So I'll throw this out there. I got 1 or 2 more slides just for the information to cover. So if there's any more questions, this will be the last chance. Just want to make sure that we get them all answered for everyone. But another giveaway that we have going on, just want to make everyone aware of. So Alchemy and Okta, another great prize that we're giving away. It's a brand new 2020 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. So, excuse me, one lucky person is going to win this brand new Jeep at next year's Okta's technical conference. So Okta Octane 2021. That's set to be announced in April of 21. So if you'd like to enter to win that Jeep, there should be a link to register in the chat window, or if it's not in the chat window, it's definitely going to be in the follow-up email that goes out. So you'll be able to register with that link, and you should be able to attend other events. As a side note, if you want to increase your chances of winning, you can also follow us on LinkedIn. We have some other events that'll be coming out through the year. So follow us on LinkedIn. You'll be able to see those additional opportunities for more entries, increase your chances of winning. And I'll just, as a side note, if perhaps you work for an organization where you can't accept the Jeep, you can accept the value of the Jeep and direct it towards a charity or a benefit of your choosing. But it can't be your personal charity. I'll just say that. And one more quick look for any other questions. Okay, great. I don't see any other. Well, look, I certainly appreciate everyone taking some time to spend with Michael and I today. We hope that not only was this helpful, but it's beneficial to give you ideas of how Alchemy and Okta can help you with your business. Obviously, we hit just a couple of use cases here. They seem to be very popular ones. If you have other use cases and you're interested, in hearing if we can help you with those and solve them, then of course your Alchemy rep is going to be reaching out just as a follow-up, and we'd be happy to set up a one-on-one meeting with you to dive deeper, make sure that we answer any other questions that come up or can help you with your entire identity strategy. So with that, again, thanks everybody, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.